A baby left unattended in a car. No sign of a break-in. So what happened to Ames Glover? Welcome to Vanished Voices UK, your new favourite spot for curious missing persons cases, true crime stories, and in-depth investigations. The disappearance of Ames Glover. A 35-year mystery and a mother's search for answers. On the evening of the 5th of February 1990, 5-month-old Ames Glover was left alone in his father's Ford Sierra on South Road in Southall, West London. His father went to withdraw cash and collect a takeaway, a trip that took no more than 20 minutes. When he returned, the car was seemingly undisturbed, but Ames had vanished without a trace. Despite many interviews and high-profile appeals by both his mother and the Metropolitan Police, no solid leads emerged. There were no signs of forced entry, no eyewitness accounts of a stranger approaching the vehicle, and no abandoned clothing or footprints to follow. More than 3 decades on, Ames's disappearance remains an open case, and his family continues to search for any piece of information that might explain what happened in those 20 minutes. Ames Glover was born on the 21st of August 1989 in West London to Paul Glover and Shanika Ondaatje. Paul, of Ghanaian heritage, and Shanika, originally from Sri Lanka, had separated by early 1990, and Ames was in the care of his father at the time of his disappearance. From birth, Ames had been placed on a local at-risk register, reflecting concerns about his welfare within a family already under strain. His mother, Shanika, campaigned tirelessly for his well-being, and in the months before February 1990, both parents were in and out of each other's lives. This set the stage for the tragic events of that winter evening. On the early evening of the 5th of February 1990, at approximately 6:45 p.m, Paul Glover parked his blue Ford Sierra on South Road, Southall, at the junction with Hamilton Road. He left his 5-month-old son Ames alone in the back seat while he walked to the nearby Lloyds Bank cash point and then to a takeaway restaurant. Upon returning, he found the vehicle undisturbed, but Ames had vanished without a trace. Paul immediately alerted the Metropolitan Police, who began inquiries that night, yet found no signs of forced entry, no witnesses to an abduction, and no physical evidence left at the scene. Following Paul Glover's call to police that night, Metropolitan Police launched one of their largest missing infant inquiries to date. Within days, officers had conducted dozens of interviews with people including neighbours, passers-by, and both of Ames's parents. But they uncovered no solid leads, and no charges were ever brought. Forensic examination of the blue Ford Sierra revealed no signs of forced entry. Its doors and windows were intact and locked exactly as Paul had left them, and there were no eyewitness accounts of anyone approaching the vehicle or hearing a child cry on South Road that evening. In the weeks that followed, criticism arose over how the case was handled and presented to the public. Police briefed the media on Ames's family's circumstances, including his parents' separation and his placement on a local at-risk register. Many believed that this discouraged wider public engagement. As Philip Hensher wrote in The Independent, "It seems to be harder to make a good story out of a missing black child than out of one with blonde hair and blue eyes." Following years of limited progress, the case was formally reopened in 2002 at the behest of Ames's mother Shanika Ondaatje and placed under the remit of Scotland Yard's Racial and Violent Crimes Task Force. In October 2003, on what would have been Ames's 14th birthday, Miss Ondaatje made an emotional appeal for information, offering a £10,000 reward, and detectives confirmed that they had spent 2 years reinvestigating every lead. Officers travelled to Ghana in early 2003 after a tip-off suggesting Ames might have been taken there. DNA tests on 2 men identified in relation to the case proved negative, and no further trace was uncovered. On Ames's 23rd birthday in 2012, the Metropolitan Police and his mother appealed once again for fresh information, reinforcing that the investigation remained open and that anyone with knowledge, no matter how small, could help unlock the truth. Since then, Mr. Ndarchi and the police have issued periodic appeals, most recently in 2023, urging witnesses or those with family or community knowledge to come forward with any details that might resolve one of Britain's most enduring missing child cases. There are 3 principal lines of speculation that have featured most prominently in reputable discussions of Ames Glover's disappearance. The first theory looks at parental involvement. From the outset, both Paul Glover and Shanika Ondaatje were interviewed by detectives, but neither was ever charged. The car showed no forced entry marks, and Paul's account of leaving it locked was not contradicted by any witnesses. Nevertheless, some observers have noted that in virtually every missing child case, parents are closely scrutinised first. In this instance, the absence of any physical evidence ultimately forced the police to rule the family out as suspects. The second theory discusses the possibility of an opportunistic abduction by a stranger. This theory holds that a passerby simply noticed an unlocked or easily accessible vehicle and seized the chance to snatch a completely unaccompanied infant. The challenges to this scenario are twofold. No one reported seeing anybody approach the Sierra on South Road that evening, and there were no footprints, fingerprints, or even crying heard on what was, by all accounts, a reasonably busy street. The third theory looks at the possibility of overseas trafficking. Given Paul Glover's Ghanaian heritage, investigators followed up on a tip in early 2003 that Ames might have been taken abroad. Officers from Scotland Yard travelled to Ghana and conducted DNA checks on individuals identified by the tipster. Each proved negative, and nothing further materialised from that line of inquiry. One other possible theory is that Ames might have died due to negligence and there was a cover-up. Some suspect that an accident occurred and this was concealed, which would explain the lack of evidence. This theory seems to have never been publicly advanced by police due to no physical leads. To date, none of these theories has produced verifiable evidence. The investigation remains open, and all possibilities, however unlikely, continue to be examined. Despite the inquiries already discussed, several fundamental questions remain unanswered. How was Ames removed from a securely locked car? Forensic examinations seem to confirm that the Ford Sierra's doors and windows were locked exactly as Paul Glover had left them, with no signs of forced entry. Why did no one on South Road hear a baby crying or see anyone near the vehicle? Dozens of witnesses were allegedly interviewed, yet no one reported hearing a child crying or seeing a stranger approach the car. Did the case's early handling and family background disclosures deter potential witnesses? Critics argue that emphasising Ames's placement on an at-risk register and his parents' separation may have discouraged community members from coming forward. Did institutional bias limit initial investigation rigour? Ben Needham went missing the following year, and his case seemed to garner far much more national and international attention. Some of this could be down to the fact that Ben Needham went missing in another country, but could the disparity have anything to do with ethnicity? Compare Ames's case to the case of Madeleine McCann, and other questions such as class division and gender also arise. These questions cut to the heart of why, over 30 years later, the disappearance of 5-month-old Ames Glover remains one of Britain's most perplexing open investigations. As of today, more than 35 years have passed since 5-month-old Ames Glover was last seen, and his disappearance remains an open, unsolved case. Despite periodic appeals, there have been no significant new leads or credible sightings since DNA checks in Ghana proved negative in 2003. The Metropolitan Police continue to classify the investigation as active. They welcome any information, however small, via the Missing Persons Unit on 101. There is also the option to call Crime Stoppers anonymously. Ames's mother, Shanika Ondaatje, has said, "Although I have tried to move on, there will always be a part of me that cannot. I need to know what happened to Ames." Until someone comes forward with new evidence, the fate of baby Ames Glover and what happened in those 20 minutes on South Road remains one of Britain's most enduring mysteries. Over 3 decades have passed since 5-month-old Ames Glover disappeared from his father's car on South Road, Southall, and the case remains unsolved and active. If you have any information, no matter how seemingly insignificant it may be, please contact the Metropolitan Police Missing Person Unit on 101 or call Crime Stoppers anonymously. Your tip could finally bring answers to Ames's family. Share this video to keep Ames's story alive. Somebody out there knows what happened to Ames. Let's bring him home. As always, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, every missing person deserves to be found. Like, comment and subscribe to see more new and cold missing persons cases from the UK.